Imagine being sewn alive into a pitch-black leather sack. The water is rising. You are suffocating. And you are not alone. Thrashing in the dark beside you is a wild dog, a rooster, a monkey, and a venomous viper that strikes out in sheer panic. Modern legal justice is designed to happen behind closed doors, relying on quiet courtrooms, sterile prison cells, and due process. Ancient Rome took the exact opposite approach. The Roman state faced an impossible logistical problem. At its height, the empire controlled up to a quarter of the world's population, stretched across 3 continents. They had to maintain order over millions of people without a single security camera, digital database, or modern police force. The orator Cicero laid out the brutal solution. Because the state could not watch everyone, it had to make a terrifying example out of the few criminals it actually caught. Executions had to be so public and so cruel that the mere thought of breaking the law would induce panic. Rome weaponized these spectacles to mask a state in deep panic, using theater to hide the fragility of the imperial grip on its own people. Inside the Colosseum, ordinary executions were upgraded into damnatio ad bestias, condemnation to the beasts. The state transformed the sand into a stage for forced mythological roleplay. Victims were forced to act out legends that ended in their actual deaths. One prisoner was handed a lyre and told to play the role of Orpheus, a mythical musician whose songs charmed wild animals. Instead of being enchanted, a starved bear was released to maul him to death while the audience cheered. Emperor Nero escalated the horror with the tunica molesta, a pitch-soaked garment strapped to a victim and set ablaze. Nero used these living human torches to illuminate his evening garden parties. Maintaining the spectacle required a massive, dedicated supply chain. Thousands of exotic animals had to be captured from the edges of the known world, transported across oceans, and kept alive just long enough to die in the arena. The immense effort required to bring these creatures to the sand transformed a simple execution into an act of state dominance. By forcing nature and mythology to submit to the executioner's blade, Rome projected its authority over the physical and spiritual world alike. The animals were engineered into weapons. Handlers locked lions and bears in pitch-black tunnels and starved them for days. When the gates finally opened, the beasts were driven to a frenzied, desperate panic, ensuring a violent, one-sided slaughter in the sand. Feeding the arena's demand for violence triggered a permanent ecological collapse across entire regions of the ancient world. This map shows the rapid depletion of animal populations across North Africa. To supply enough lions, leopards, and bears for a few hours of applause in Rome, hunters pushed entire native species into local extinction. As the local habitats emptied out, the empire had to stretch its supply lines deeper into the African continent and the Middle East, demanding longer, more desperate caravans to keep the arena stocked. Rome was consuming the very ecosystems it governed. By exhausting the natural world to maintain a few hours of theater, the empire traded its long-term stability for an illusion of invincibility. The loudest spectacles weren't the only methods of control. Sometimes, crimes that broke religious taboos demanded an eerie, absolute silence. Consider the Vestal Virgins, the sacred priestesses tasked with guarding Rome's eternal flame. If a Vestal broke her strict vow of chastity, spilling her sacred blood was forbidden. So the state paraded her through silent streets, lowered her into a tiny underground chamber with a lamp and a crust of bread, and buried her alive. The heavy, quiet finality of this procession terrified even the emperors who watched it. This leads us back to poena culeae, the penalty of the sack. This was the ultimate psychological terror, reserved strictly for parricide, the murder of a parent. The executioners didn't select the animals in the sack at random. The dog represented blind rage. The rooster stood for betrayal. The viper embodied poison, and the monkey was a grotesque imitation of humanity. The condemned was locked in total darkness with their own sins made flesh. These calculated, unnatural horrors began to take a heavy toll. The psychological weight of orchestrating such intimate, specific torture started to crack the sanity and confidence of the men who ordered them. Emperor Hadrian finally reached a breaking point. Deeply disturbed by the monstrous nature of the sack, he officially changed the law, making the penalty optional because his court could no longer stomach the weight of the horror. The philosopher Seneca watched the games and noted a dark reality. Witnessing these daily executions didn't purge crime from the city, it corrupted the soul, leaving the watching citizens more cruel and inhuman than when they arrived. Training citizens to view extreme human suffering as casual entertainment severely dulls a society's resilience. The relentless dependency on cheap bread and endless blood games eroded Rome's core cultural stability. Attempting to control millions of people entirely through terror ultimately failed. The empire crumbled, leaving behind these hollow stones as a testament to a society that eroded from within. Our modern justice system has its flaws, but Rome leaves us with a stark warning. When a society trades human dignity for the illusion of control, it destroys the very civilization it set out to protect.